Good morning, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the esteemed participants of this event. I'm really to chair this session today. And could I please kindly ask to put on my slide that I would like to show as an introduction to this session. While coping with the technical issues, let me first introduce the participants of this session. And this is a really rich one because here we have the representatives and key managers of both port and rail companies. And so we have today together with us Mr. Zeno D'Agostino, the head of the Trieste Port Authority. We have Mr. Philip Sweens, Managing Director of Hamburg Hafen und Logistik International. We also have with us Mr. Ulrich Baldauf, the head of Innovation and IT Strategy at Hamburg Port Authority. Mr. Alexey Grom from United Transportation and Logistics Company, UTLC era. Mr. Mario Holzner from Vienna Institute of International Economics. Mr. Baur Bektemirov, the Chief Economist of Astana International Financial Center. So you can see that the panelists, the student panelists that we have today with us, cover basically all major issues of connectivity from maritime transportation, rail transportation to economic issues. As the introduction words, I would like to present just one slide. This is a part of the study that was published this year by AIFC and International Union of Railways. This study was aimed at modeling the impact of further enhancement of inland rail transportation from Asia to Europe and from Europe to Asia on the economic growth, or unfortunately on what we see now is the economic slowdown. What we did was actually we evaluated and measured up the impact in real figures for the so-called best rail case scenario that refers to important enhancements in rail transportation from China to Europe. And you can see that this impact does really exist. And there is an important increase in various fields of economic activities. And this increase is different for different areas of economic activities. So, but we should consider that rail transportation refers only to less than 3% of Eurasian transportation in general. All other 97% is actually carried out by maritime transportation, and that's why I'm extremely glad to see the ports here. This week, we also published a new, an English version of our report, The Transport Infrastructure and Economic Growth. And basically, this slide is just to show that the what we are talking about, the impact of the connectivity on economic growth or on the smoothing up the economic slowdown really exists. It can be measured. And this is really an area of further effort for all the participants. But I'm not going to take your time anymore with our findings. In case you are interested, I will be glad to send it out to you. Let me pass directly to the panelists of our session. And my first question would be to Mr. Zeno D'Agostino. Mr. D'Agostino, the port of Trieste is located at two TEN-T corridors, the Baltic-Adriatic and the Mediterranean. So the port, of course, participates in numerous international links. And so the role for the international connectivity of this hub is extremely important. What are the challenges that you would expect in the nearest future? And what will be your response to these upcoming changes related to pandemic and maybe not related to pandemic? What is your strategy regarding both European and global transportation and connectivity? Please,
Thanks.
over to you.
Yeah. You know what, we have just heard by Mr. Profumo that one of the issue that he has listed is uncertainty. So, you know, it's not so easy to say what will be the future. What I think is that a lot of phenomena, a lot of trends that now are going on started before the COVID situation. So, you know, one of these, for example, it was just also nominated by Massimo, is the reshoring, backshoring, and you know, a lot of phenomena that has, due to we can call it a new Cold War between the two blocks, now China and United States. And so, you know, we are just seeing before the COVID situation that there were the relocalization of some industries or manufacturing activities all over the world. You know, one of the other reason for this relocalization should have been the COVID, because, you know, at the beginning of the COVID situation, I heard a lot of people saying that China will not host the localization of manufacturing activities for the problem that it was the nation of a disease. The problem is that now China is the only place in the world where you don't have a disease. So, you know, we are just looking every day, every month, what is happening, because every day we have some news that cancel what we thought the day before. So it is not so easy. So the first thing I think it is this one. What it is important is to understand if on the axis between Europe and Asia, we will see that now is the most important transport access corridor in the world. There will be the same flows that now are they are caused by the localization in Asia of the most important manufacturing activities. I think that it will be the same in the future. You know, there is not only China in Asia, there are a lot of other nations. And for us, for example, for Trieste, you know, we are just a hub for and gateway for what is coming from Asia and what is going from Europe to Asia. Asia, and you know, it is not only Asia, Far East. I think it is also important what is happening in the Middle East. You know, the situation of Turkey, for example, is something that must be analyzed, especially from Trieste. You know, in Trieste we have huge flows of goods and cargo coming from Turkey to Europe and vice versa. I think the important thing is the relation between Europe and East. The East is Middle East, is Far East, and Southeast. It is not only Far East. So, you know, if the situation is that the flows of the most important flows of cargo are still between East and Europe, you find a very important role for Trieste, for the Adriatic Sea, not only Trieste. I think now it is a good age for the Adriatic Sea, for the Mediterranean Sea, not only for Trieste. You know, we are not alone in the Adriatic Sea. But it depends if the axis of the manufacturing activities and the consumption, and also the manufacturing activities in Europe and the consumption in the East still remain the same. If this is the most important axis, you know, for us, and when I say us, it is okay, Trieste, it is the Adriatic Sea, it is the Mediterranean Sea, and then, you know, all the nations that we have in our inland in Europe. So Austria, Germany, Eastern Europe, you know, this is, I think, something that will not change. But you know, I think I have to do something that it is quite philosophy. You know, we before COVID, which is, I think, important. Before COVID, we always emphasize the role of connectivity. But after COVID, we are seeing that disconnectivity is important. No, we must be always ready to be isolated. Now it is the case of Italy today, and I think the case of a lot of nations in Europe. So in the capacity of a system, a logistics system, to be resilient, it is very important to create a disconnectivity in a very fast way. Because, you know, I always say that now we are suffering from a healthy sanitary disease, but is a traditional virus. The problem is that if in the future we will find, for example, a digital virus and not a normal one, we will see very, very strong effect. We are now not looking at what will be the problem with a digital virus. So for the technological side, but also for the physical side, for the transport, it is very important for a system to be ready for connectivity. And what we have done in Trieste in the last years, I think it's an example. We, you know, I always say that I think we have a record in the world. I don't know. I look also the people that is now in this session. I know some of them, but you know, the last year we have done the 56% of use of railways in our container terminal. I don't know if there is some other ports in the world where you have 56% of the use of train for you know, the objective of Europe that the European Union gave to us, to all of us, is 50% to the 2050. We have done 56% in 2018. So we are creating, and we have created, a very important connection from Trieste to all over Europe, from Belgium to Hungary. And yesterday, for example, we started with a new train to Nuremberg, for example. So, you know, we are a very important gateway for the logistics in Europe. But it is important in our capacity to be resilient also to create disconnectivity in a moment, because you know, we have seen that you are competitive if you can create isolation, if you can isolate yourself, because now there are some problems that we didn't have in the past. So as I said, it is also philosophy, you know, it is not something connected to what we do every day, but I think it is very important in the capacity of every kind of system, and in specific for a logistics system, to be ready to create isolation, to be ready to be disease protected, and you know, I said not only for the actual disease, but it will be also in the future for digital disease, for digital virus. So, you know, for example, when what is happening now in Europe is that we are creating some islands because we want to protect ourselves from the virus. And I think we will come back to the situation of March and April, and I think you know, this is the problem that we will face in the next weeks. What still resist during the disease in the lockdown of March and April was the capacity, for example, of us to continually work in the port, but also to have border activities through the railways activities. The railways was the only thing that remained during the lockdown. The trucks stopped and the railways didn't stop. So we got, for example, some good figures, positive figures also during the lockdown because of this important network that we create with intermodality and railways. I think this is important because in this capacity of a system to be resilient, it will be very important to have a good network of railways, because the structure network of railways will be something that could be, you know, not so touched by the disease in the future. And if I'm not so optimistic. If we face a future where we will have a lot of shock, and one of the shock will be the disease, the COVID now. I hope there will be not some other kind of a disease in the future. It is very important for a gateway, for a port like Trieste, to have a very good and structured railways network.
Thank you so much, Mr. D'Agostino, for your comprehensive answer. And as far as I remember, you are the first person that was talking about the disconnectivity as an important thing and something we have to learn how to cope with. It would be interesting to know the opinion of other participants of our panel on this issue, especially the economists and the rail people. But let me first pass the word to Mr. Philip Sweens. Mr. Sweens, the Hamburger Hafen und Logistik has strengthened its links with the port of Trieste. And as far as I know, you are also involved inland transportation projects by traffic routes, for example, but not limited to them. What comes next for you? What links and partnerships will be in focus of your further activities, and why? How do you see the future role of Hamburg port and in international connectivity? And of course, I should ask, do you agree with the position of Mr. D'Agostino regarding the importance of disconnectivity? Please, a word to you.
Thank you, Ekaterina. I'll try to answer that, and thank you for inviting me to the panel. I had sent a presentation. Will you put it on, or shall I put it on the screen?
I didn't receive it yet.
Okay.
Would you mind to share your screen?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
So, can you see it on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
So, I'll start with very briefly who is HHLA for those people who might not know us, and then try to answer the question that you asked, and also reply to Zeno D'Agostino. We are one of the major logistic operators and port operators in Europe. 78%, actually 68%, actually 70 nowadays, owned by the city of Hamburg, with the rest being traded on the free float and on the stock exchange. And we're well known for being the container terminal operator in Hamburg, but increasingly expanding abroad. Just briefly on what areas we're involved in, and I think the first two are the ones that we will discuss a little bit more, is the container in the intermodal, because we see a very, very close link between container ports and intermodal and fast and efficient transport of containers from the ports to the hinterland. But we are also involved in logistics and what not a lot of people know, in real estate, where we managed part of the real estate in the city of Hamburg in name of and for the city of Hamburg. Just brief overview of where we are present. As you said, Ekaterina, we are not just present in Hamburg with the 3 container terminals we have there, but also have been present for a long time in Odessa, in Ukraine, in Tallinn, in Estonia since 2 years. And it was announced end of September that we would invest in a new port in Trieste, Piattaforma Logistica Trieste. One of the other key elements of our portfolio is our company called Metrans, which is the largest intermodal operator in Western Europe, connecting the seaports, not just in the north, but also in the south, with the hinterland, in particular Central Eastern Europe. And we do that with our own locomotives, our own rolling stock, and our own terminals in the hinterland in order to ensure a very efficient movement of cargo. And that's where I would like to come to the next slide, and to our views on the changes and building bridges in Europe. I think Zeno touched on it, and the previous presentation of Mr. Profumo also touched on it. There are changes in the flow of cargo and the supply chains happening in Europe. Changes in terms of sources of the procurement, whether there's a shift from Asia to the Middle East, or whether there's a shift from the US to other countries. But also within Europe, there's increasing changes in shifts, and we see a lot of the, I would say, dominance of the North Sea ports being challenged by the South Sea ports, and for some it makes sense also to really consider different access points to transport. And for us also, one of the key things is to have very, very efficient movement of cargo. And the pandemic has shown that ports have maintained operations quite well, but a lot of the disruptions have happened in the hinterland, especially for road traffic. Rail was not that much affected, but I think it all made us realize that it's important, it's critical to have solid supply chains that are not affected by short-term disruptions, but can function independently of what's happening. And also independently on whether the goods come by land from Asia, they come by sea from Asia, or whether there's a shift from Asia to the Middle East and or to regions like Turkey, which I see very much happening, and where there is still a lot of uncertainty, but doesn't change the fact that we need to make sure as Europeans that we have a very efficient transport of goods. And that's also looking at where we are going and what our goal is. And you were mentioning inland transportation, you were mentioning Transeka, you were mentioning Silk Road, but that's exactly, and I think this map shows it quite well, what we realize and what is absolutely critical for us is next to having the entry points, the hubs that allow cargo to come into Europe, to also make sure, in particular now, after we've gone through this 9 months of difficult times, to make sure that there's a close-knit connection of, and train is critical, rail is critical for us for that, a close-knit connection that allows efficient movement of goods. And that's why we have decided to invest in Trieste, because we see that as being a southern gateway to Europe. Hamburg is and will stay our main hub, but also Odessa and Tallinn, where we have an investment, and where we are looking at development of rail, and in particular in Odessa, we just started beginning of this year an intermodal company, because there also we realized that we need to do more to bring cargoes from the ports to the hinterland, and that creates a network which will allow, independently where the cargo comes from, to have hubs where the cargo is concentrated and an easy distribution of cargo to the hinterland. Physical cargo movement is one issue. I would say digital cargo movement is the other issue, and it is a complex interaction between a lot of players in the market, and one needs to make sure that data and physical movement is done very efficiently, and that's also something that we should not neglect, and for us is a very, very important part is to simplify the process, to simplify the administration, to simplify the paperwork required in order to get goods through borders, which even we've done a lot of steps in Europe, but I think at the port level, at the inland level, there's still much more opportunities for us to smoothen up this. And coming back to what Zeno was saying, doing those things potentially allow us to not have that disconnectivity, but on the contrary, in my view, even in a crisis situation, to maintain the connectivity and to make sure that independently of what happens even with border closures, we still have the supply chains which are resilient, which are flexible, and which can allow goods to move. That's it for my side. Thank you very much, and happy to have a discussion should you have different views or to discuss certain aspects.
Thank you so much, Philip. This was really an impressive presentation of an impressive strategy of Hamburg Port. Thank you so much for that, and we're all very interested to listen to it. What might be of interest to all the panelists today, that yesterday UNESCOP issued a new policy note on the connectivity in Asia that refers now to inland connectivity, and there they provide some they provide their view on the further processes that are going to be to develop, at least in Asia, in the short-term, mid-term, and long-term period. And so I this is my proposal to you to read this paper, and you see that a lot of things that we are discussing today are really put in there and some summed up in a short policy note. One of the issues that is mentioned in this UNESCOP policy note is actually the shift to digital technologies, which is quite obvious to all of us. And we've been talking about it even before the pandemic, but now these issues are extremely boosted. So I'm going to pass the next the word to Mr. Baldauf, who is in charge of exactly those issues that seem to be boosted by the pandemic, the innovations and digital solutions. So how do you think, is there really an impact of COVID-19 crisis on these technologies? What are the challenges, and are there any opportunities? Or is it just a development by itself and it was not influenced by the pandemic? How would you evaluate the further development of these issues and their role in connectivity, and of course their role in Hamburg port activities? So please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Ekaterina. Good morning all together from Hamburg. Yeah, that's of course good questions. Yeah, and I mean, we all see the digital changes like in our daily life. I mean, everybody is having digital video calls each day. Even our kids are doing it at school, and even whole conferences are completely done virtually. So I think this will also go on after the pandemic. But as you said, Ekaterina, I am responsible for innovations at the Hamburg Port Authority. And I feel strongly that there's much more support for the activities we are doing. And one good example, I think, for this is our initiative, Digital Port Twin. Yeah. Why is it? Because I think many people realize that that parts or the whole jobs, or at least parts of their jobs, can be done in a virtual world, or can be supported at least by a virtual world. I provided a little presentation to explain what I mean by that, and I would also like to share my screen. I try my best. Okay, can you already see the screen?
Yes, we do. We can.
Okay. Okay, so good. Now it starts. So digital twin, yeah. So this is the part where we are putting the whole port in a digital replica of it. And what does it mean? It means that we put all physical objects like bridges, quay walls, roads, and so on in a digital world. And not also the objects, but also the processes behind. Because if you want to simulate anything, you also need the processes with it. We also have the people, the people themselves, but also avatars so that they can act in a digital world. And next is the places, which are the locations. Yeah, we do not have single objects somewhere, but we put them on the real places, and we have systems and devices. What are the modules we have implemented the digital twin with? It's 5 modules in our opinion. Oops, sorry. For one thing, of course, is we have the data platforms and the cloud behind it. This is mainly used for interaction also between ports, and what Philip was saying, to optimize the flow of goods, the data behind it. Then, of course, I think everybody knows we are using much more and more, many more sensors than in former times, connecting them, using it for predictive maintenance and so on. And the newer parts are simulations. Yeah, so we have digital replica of the objects, and we can plan the future before we really build it. And another thing are 3D models and virtual augmented reality. And this is I would like to focus on, because this really becomes more important and gets more sense in Hamburg, at least at the Port Authority. So put the whole port in the virtual reality. Here, this is the picture of parts of the port. You see the bridge in the background, you see the trees, the water, and so on. And we're doing it to support our engineers. We are doing it to support our maintenance. We are doing it to visualize simulations, and also to do virtual site visits. Yeah. If we have a closer look for our engineers, how was the work in former times? Yeah, we were planning new buildings with pencils and paper. Then we came up with 2-dimensional programs, 2D CAD programs, and planning with that. Then we came to 3D models. Yeah, so we had 3D models, but to explain what's going on, we still had to use 2D monitors. And these days, our engineers are planning with BIM, building information modeling. Yeah, so they have 3D models and they combine it with the data. Yeah, so we have the costs, the properties, time frames, everything is in one model. So these are our engineers doing now. And what did we do? We said, all right, we offer you to bring all your 3D models in the virtual reality world. So it's in now, and now our engineers, you see it here in the bottom right, they have a virtual reality working place in their offices. Here we have one of our engineers. This is Daniel Dombeck. He's wearing, you see, a virtual reality mask. He has controllers in his hand, and now these days, you know, most of us work in home offices, or it's not possible to meet with one or more people. So if we want to have a look to a visit of a construction site, we don't have to go there by car or by a vessel or boat or ship or so, but we can do it virtually. So here you see him, then here you see what he is seeing with his glasses. So we have the whole port in, and now he's flying to a construction site. Yeah. For example, here, this is a new bridge that is planned, so he can see in a virtual reality the bridge in the original environment, and he can also see even what is underneath the ground. Yeah, so if we look to the next picture, this is the planning of the new bridge underneath, and here we see old poles that are already in the ground from former project. There was a lock in many years ago, and this is very important for them to for the planning of the new bridge, of course. We also have, this is another engineer flying around. Here you also see that we have the depth of the water also inside, yeah, because of course we know the depth of the water in the whole port and in the river. And now you can also use this in the virtual reality, fly underneath the water surface and so on. And we have many more things in there. So one thing is for our engineers, and the other thing is doing virtual site visits. Yeah, if you want to have a look, for example, to our VTS center, yeah, all vessels that are coming to the port of Hamburg are coordinated here in our VTS center. You can go in there, explain what it's like, and you can do it from your home office, from anywhere in the world. You can go in and explain. You do not need to have to go there. Also, new planned objects, like on the top right, this is a new bridge planned. And if you want to explain this to stakeholders who are non-engineers, like politicians or people who live in the city, then you can explain very and nice and accurate what it means to have a new bridge, how it fits in the new environment. And again, you can also do it from other ports or from all over the world. And the picture on the bottom right shows that we also have the possibility to put in the whole city of Hamburg and also other cities to get the virtual what to say, yeah, to see, yeah, to visit it virtually. Another thing is trainings. Yeah, if you do trainings, for example, on a firefighter boat, we have a big firefighter boat here in the port, and this is quite new. We have it for 2 years now, and it's quite complicated. The firemen or the firefighters told me, yeah, there's many pipes, many engines in this boat, and some pipes are for water, some pipes are foam. There are different switches and ventiles and so on, and this is difficult to be trained. So if you want to go have the training, you need to go on the boat, and then the expert need to explain what's going on. But you can also do this in the virtual world. Yeah? Again, you can do it from your home office, from anywhere in the world. You can go inside the boat and do the training there. So this is a good advantage for all the firefighters. Another thing, another training is safety at work. Yeah, if you have, in case of a fire, you do at these days, you do trainings, you get the alarm, then you know, all right, don't go to the elevator, go to the stairs and meet somewhere. You get it. Yes, you know what to do, or you have to do it physically. So if you want to do this more often and more sustainable, then you can use virtual reality again. So what did we do? We brought our buildings inside the virtual reality. Here, for example, you see the floor I'm working on. It's in the virtual world now. So we can simulate fires, and we can simulate the smoke that is coming from the ceiling down to the ground. And then, like in a game, you have to go out. Yeah, you have to close the windows and stuff like that, so you can learn the application scenario very realistic. Virtual meetings. Right now we are meeting in a web call. Yeah, we have our cameras and we see each other. And if you want to do site visits somewhere in the virtual world, or if you want to see how's the new container terminal in Hamburg or in Montreal or in Singapore or wherever, and you are in the virtual world, then you can go there and see it together with many people. But you do not use the cameras there. This is not possible these days, but we use avatars. So this, for example, is Daniel. He's my team. He's one of our VR specialists, and he is an avatar. And you can meet somewhere. This is in a place in Hamburg, so you can meet inside there and see what you're doing, explain new things. Yeah? And you can also do this with an iPad as well if you want. Another thing is augmented reality. This is a bit different. Yeah, you probably know that. Yeah, you can use glasses or even an iPad or something. You put it on a real object, and then you get augmented additional information. This is an example we are working on at the moment at an international research program, which is funded. And this is a ship. This goes to the port of Hamburg, and it's measuring the depth of the water. Yeah, it's doing it all day long. And if you have a look at the steering room of this boat, then you see, yeah, you look out of the window like in a car, and you see things. And the idea, what we are working on, is to augment the reality in there. So if you look out of the window of this ship in the future, then you see augmented information. Yeah, you see vessels, where are they going to? You can see also the currents in the water and the depth of the water, of course, stuff like that. And I mean, if you're sitting in a modern car these days, and you also get information in the windscreen there, in the window screen. And this is also things we are doing at the moment in real time onto the boats. Yeah, so this is we are doing to help people with augmented reality in their daily lives. This is what I was trying to explain, how virtual things are going on. And it's, for me, it's a good example for COVID, because at the moment we cannot go anywhere and meet with many people. So people realize we need virtual elements in their work to go on. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Uli. That is all just amazing. There's just one thing where I would like to disagree with you regarding the online education for children. Please let us not continue with that.
Yeah,
it is extremely difficult to arrange it all.
I'm fully with you. I also have 2 kids, and I don't want to have back the times of homeschooling.
Oh yeah, the same situation for me with 2 kids. Okay, perfect. I think that I will leave all the questions till the end of our panel, and I also see that there are questions that appear in the chat, but we will leave them to the very end. And now I would like to switch to rail, please, and to Mr. Alexey Grom. Mr. Grom, UTLC is a real land bridge between Asia and Europe. And I'm sure that you will certainly disagree with the idea of disconnection, because UTLC is only about connection. But please tell me, how are you going to cope with this new period of uncertainty? What would be the new solutions? And maybe you could also emphasize the issue of sustainability, because right now, and we can see that with the EU Green Deal, that railways are strongly linked with the idea of sustainable economy. So please, Mr. Alexey Grom, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ekaterina, and thank you very much for organizing such an event. It's a big honor to attend together with you today. And I would like to start that my vision is very positive for the railway developments and for connectivity and disconnectivity. I would say a couple of words later on about this interesting idea and philosophical idea, I would say even. What about the rail? The rail gives to all the countries a lot of advantages in business developments, in economics, in social aspects, ecological improvements, and other very important sides of our life. So it is so reasonable and native to support this highly important industry, to support for ourselves, for the next generations. So they could say us in 100 years, thank you very much for this development, or merci, or grazie mille, or danke schön, or shishi. Thank you for such an effective work, and for that we have created for them a fundamental base of connectivity and partnership to to enjoy mutual cooperation. And I would even say that enjoy is a very correct word definition of what we are feeling in UTLC Air Company when building this Eurasian Railway bridge together with our shareholders, together with our partners, together with our clients. And by the way, our UTLC bridge is one of many bridges between Europe and Asia. But 90% of the railway transit traffic today between China and Europe are in UTLC era services. 6 years ago, we had less than 20% market share, with a very low rate of rail transit growth in general. So we have done, together with our European and Chinese neighbors, a very good job during these 5 years. And this result is showing how Eurasian transport industry could be effectively together and close to each other. And back to connectivity and disconnectivity, I like very much Mr. Zeno D'Agostino's philosophical idea about connectivity and the importance of disconnectivity in this difficult time of coronavirus spread. Let me add this with my thought about it. And from my point of view, our Eurasian railway team were never that much connected than during this difficult disconnected pandemic time. And one can say that this is a paradox. But again, from my point of view, this is a very good example of how to bring industry together, how to act together during these difficult times. And railway transport has a very good tradition that most of the competitive advantages are very much increasing during this difficult time in the world industries. So I would say that the number of contacts that we have today much higher than we had before this crisis. The communication was never that high than today, and the results are very good. And this is very much motivating us in Eurasian Economical Union to go forward, to make mutual ambitious targets for the future, and to build a competitive and reliable future for our Eurasian transport industry. So I move now to my presentation. I hope, yeah, I can see it. So next slide, please. So I think that most of you know about our bridge, about our channel, about our railway pipeline between China and Europe, and there's no reason to describe it in details. Next, please. Some figures regarding 2020. Like I said, this is a very good year for the figures of our Eurasian railway transit. So our forecast for 2020 is over 500,000 TEUs in our services. So as many of you knows that our slogan is very similar to Chinese one belt, one road, 1 million. 1 million of containers, of course, on this route. So this year we're expecting that half of our way of our route to 1 million station will be passed already 2020. This is 2 years ahead than we have predicted before in our strategic plan. What is also very important that both numbers for US services and East services, or eastbound and westbound, both figures are growing up, and the balance, which is very important for the competitive pricing for our services, also is over 50%. I would say that the interest of European cargo holders is growing up, and today we see a lot of new customers and a lot of new cargos in our trains from Europe to China. So we have about 20 trains in average per day in our services, And in September, we had maximum 30 trains on track, on 1520 track. It means that we have a train every 45 minutes. I think this is also a very good thing that we have done together with our European and Chinese partners. 95 locations of dispatch and discharge, and we, together with our partners and customers and shareholders, of course, we have created the network of over 180 routes in Eurasian services, which is also a very good result. I remember 2016, when we, in the very beginning, we had about 25 or 27, I don't know exact figure. So now it is already really very good result of this Eurasian railway network. Next, please. Yeah, and another thing that we see today, we call it modal shift. I mean, not we call it modal shift. It's the international logistic industry call it modal shift. So we tried to improve our services during this difficult month of 2020. We tried to cut our costs, and we tried to offer to our clients best available rates and best available services. And so we got the 2 times more volumes already in April 2020 than a year before, in April 2019. And since April, every month was a record month in terms of our operational results. Next, please. Next. So in UTLC era, we have created our modal shift index just to convince more customers to move from air or from truck, from deep sea routes to rail, also realizing that rail will always be complementary to the deep sea shippers, for example, but still we want to analyze what the cargo holders are expecting from us. So you can see these indexes in the right side of this picture. So I can only add that pricing and speed as about the same level of indexes, and we have first time we have eco safety index, which we, our clients, our partners, and our shareholders pay more and more attention during the last years. Next, please. Next. As maybe some of you know, that we are developing our first railway index, which is in general indicates the rate level between China, between border of China and border of Europe. Like many shipping and sea indexes already exist for many years on this market, like WCI index or Shanghai Freight Containerized Index. So we have created our own railway transit index, which we call ERAI, Eurasian Rail Alliance Index. And you can see on this picture that the number of WCI, for example, and our ERAI indexes are almost on the same level. So this is also a fundamental changes in the world logistic, that these indexes are like in $40 for 40 feet containers outside from each other, away from each other. So when I was studying in my transport university in Moscow, it was a fundamental knowledge that these indexes should be at least 2 times different from each other. So I think this is a modal shift time for the railway business. Also, this is a very good opportunity for the sea shipping companies also to make more contacts with our rail, with the rail operators, to try to make new services for the customers, for the cargo holders, and our doors are very much open. And I can say with a big pleasure that big shipping companies, deep sea shipping companies, are regular customers today in our offices. I can say that this is also a virtual communication through the internet, and because we need to keep this connectivity, but still the number of this communication is growing up very high. So I guess that was the last one. I would like to say this is a very good time for the Eurasian transport industry developments. And for these developments, we all need a very, very good health. So I wish you this health, and I'm looking forward to see you very soon physically. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Grom. What is lacking us right now is actually a cup of coffee in the break that we all are used to have during the conferences and the meetings. But I hope that even after the online meetings, we will be able to keep on the exchanges online and offline. Actually, this year is really, we can see drastic changes for rail markets. This is absolutely true. And most probably next year, we're going to see a variety of updated strategies of railway market players, but not only for railways, that is also true for air marketplace and all other stakeholders involved in connectivity issues. Mr. Mario Holzner from Vienna Economics, from Vienna Institute of International Economics, as far as I know, you've been calling for intensification of Euro-Asian links and construction of new connectivity bridges. Could you please tell us more? How does the pandemic influence on these ideas, and what should be actually the efforts of international stakeholders? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you also very much for inviting me. Indeed, I think the whole pandemic is a catalyst for a number of trends that we have observed already in the past years. And I would like to share maybe my presentation here with you on a, let's call it blue sky proposal that our institute has made some time ago, suggesting a European Silk Road. Normally we produce a lot of, let's say, a bit boring economic analysis with a lot of numbers, and but we are also a think tank, so from time to time we have to come up with something where we think out of the box. And we called it European Silk Road. One might want to call it in a different way, but everything came out of the analysis of the big disparities in the wider European continent. I would include also the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea area. We see here a map of GDP per capita in purchasing power parities. And what we basically observe is that about half of the wider European population of about 500 million in the West is doing quite fine, while approximately the same amount of number of people in the East have only half the income. And it's interesting to note that modern transport infrastructure is fairly equally distributed between West and East of this continent. Here we see motorway density, and it becomes clear that there is some sort of connection between the two issues. We are well aware of this, and causality probably runs in both ways. So rich societies can afford better infrastructure, but it is also, I think, true that also poor countries, by investing in infrastructure, can raise the likelihood of industrialization, of improving their productivity, and in the end also income for broad masses of population. So constructing infrastructure is a good thing. The European Union has been active in this, but I would say that, for instance, trans-European networks, which have been planned and financed since the early 90s, are only a slow expansion of modern infrastructure. The funds are rather limited. I would say you have, I don't know, one fund of 70 billion here, another of 50 billion there, and that's, you know, across this multi-annual financial framework of 7 years or so. So it's not really a big push. Other players, as we know, like China's Belt and Road Initiative, at least from a propagandistic point of view, offers an alternative scenario of a big push, of a grand plan of infrastructure across the Eurasian continent. So we thought, well, there is hardly any answer from Europe on this. Why not suggesting also a European Silk Road? This is not necessarily something against China, but it is something that Europe could do by itself. And we have suggested two core routes. One, and basically the idea is to connect the industrial centers in the west of the continent with the populous but lower income areas in the east of the continent. And one of the major routes would then be from somewhere around Lyon, Paris area, the Low Countries, Berlin, Warsaw, Minsk, Moscow, and with possible extensions further southwest and further east. And another one, northern Italy, southern Germany, Danube Valley, with possible extensions via sea links into the south of Russia, southern Caucasus, all the way to the Caspian Sea area. So the idea would be to have modern e-highway, mobility highways with autonomous driving systems, new standards, having a high-speed rail comparable. Everyone who has been traveling in China with a high-speed rail knows that is really a pretty cool thing to have. Driving with more than 300 kilometers per hour can reduce travel times, which otherwise would be only possible with air travel, basically. We have planned a string of ports and logistic centers all around this, and tried to basically estimate what could be the costs of such a thing. And we came up with something around 1 trillion euros. This is a huge number on the one hand, but if you relate it, for instance, to the EU's GDP, then it's only about 7%. And if you stretch it to 10, 20 years of construction, you really come down to very realistic figures, which are by no means absurd and would, I think, be very effective. We try to estimate the effects of such measures in the short run: construction effects, positive GDP growth, a lot of jobs, increase of trade. And this is not to speak about the long run productivity gains that such investment would have. But I think maybe even the economic effects are not the most important ones. I think the long run additional potential would be common infrastructure standards, for instance, also in e-mobility, in the way how a modern high-speed rail could look like. But even more so, I think the political, personal, cultural cooperation in a larger Europe that could be possible with such a high-speed network are of utmost importance, particularly in a time where actually on the political level we have huge problems within the European Union, between the European Union countries and Russia, for instance. So at least on a technical level, there would be a common project which could foster maybe also cooperation in other fields. And in that sense, that would be a new narrative also, I think, for the continent, which I think has lost a bit of a common narrative which existed in the period after the Second World War. We have also made a number of suggestions how to finance and organize this. I won't go into the details of this. There is one possibility to have a company that would run this and have bonds which would be guaranteed by a European sovereign wealth fund, which basically would be financed in the beginning, for instance, by profits from the European Central Bank. But I don't want to go into details of this. Maybe just a last slide on an epilogue of this. We had several reports on it, updates, different focus of the reports. And last year we had, last November in Brussels, a presentation where also people from DG Move and from the European External Action Service from Bruegel were present. And next day there was, I think, very nice editorial in the Financial Times in support of our proposal. Since then we have entered also a number of other media in different discussions. And we had in summer an update together with an institute from Germany, IMK in Düsseldorf, and from Paris, Sciences Po, the OFC Institute, on a different but similar suggestion for European high-speed rail network. And I think also given, as I said, the long-term perspective of the problems we have, for instance, with air travel that have been in a way increased during this pandemics. I think a high-speed rail for Europe would be a very good issue, not only for economic and political reasons, but also obviously for environmental reasons. And I think I would like to stop here. At this point, I'm very happy on the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, dear Mario. And actually, I'm very glad to hear such proposal because AIFC Group has also been calling for the intensification of high-speed links, also for freight transportation, the Eurasian high-speed links. And I know that this project is somehow supported in China. So we'll see in the future whether it is supported by the market in general. And while continuing, and have to warn everybody that the participants of our discussion, some of the participants have to disconnect because they have other events. Please feel free to do so if you really need to go somewhere. But still, we've got a very important speech from Central Asia, from the hub of Eurasia, from Astana. This will be the words by Mr. Baur Bektemirov. Mr. Bektemirov, could you please kindly share with us the challenges and the opportunities that you see in the midterm period? What is your vision regarding the post-pandemic connectivity, especially for landlocked countries like Kazakhstan? And maybe you can share with us some insights of the further links and connectivity issues with China, because among our participants of the panel, you are the closest to this Asian country. And also another question, if you could mention, what changes do you expect to see for landlocked countries, and how do you evaluate the issue of connectivity or disconnectivity right now? Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Olga, can you hear me now? Okay. No, indeed, challenges are very important because I know last year, I remember in Trieste, there was a Belt and Road Summit, and we were all there, people from Iran, people from China, Central Asia, of course, and the European. And then we've discussed the global supply chains, we've discussed the connectivity. But unfortunately, today, we cannot do so in Trieste or somewhere else, getting them together. And we have to talk over Zoom. But then I think the questions of connectivity are still very relevant. It was really interested, this idea of disconnectivity. And it's actually in line with what's happening in different countries, because we see that the countries are looking inward now. They are working on internal economies, internal policy, internal supply chains. One very big example, probably the most important example, is the so-called dual circulation system, the strategy in China. It was announced by Xi Jinping this year, I think in summer. And there's actually a very great article in this week Economist issue when they talk in detail about the zero circulation. But basically, the whole idea behind this dual circulation is that the China wants to keep themselves open to the world, so-called the great international circulation, and that's the global supply chains, etc., while also reinforcing their own market. That's what they call the great domestic circulation. So this sounds a little bit vague, and this sounds a little bit, just words, but in fact, that's actually what's going on, because we haven't seen the details, we haven't seen the whole detailed plan from China, but we've seen that the government is very much focused on the supporting the internal production, supporting the internal supply chains, and decreasing the dependence of China from the external markets. And we've seen this is also in line with what's happening with the pandemic, but also with the trade wars, and that the China and America, this the big new cold trade war that we have, that China wants to be more independent. And what it means for small economies in the region, like Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan, for that matter, in Central Asia. First of all, the transit economy, which was the focus for us, is no longer viable in short to medium term, to be honest. And then we want to be integrated in the global supply chains, but then it's very hard to do, except for the raw commodities, the beginning of the supply chain, which is also another problem, because there is now far less demand for oil and gas, even though there's also demand for other things, like the food security has become an issue. So there's more demand to some extent to some basic products, some wheat. Kazakhstan produces wheat, and some basic agriculture products or horticulture. So that's important. But I think what's the main theme in our countries, in the small open economies in the region, is that with the new barriers, because there are so important barriers on the borders between the countries, their new barriers mean that we have to reduce the existing barriers. We have to get rid of the existing barriers, because the competition for investment has only increased. And that has become, that's become the main theme in Kazakhstan. Even already last year, we created the investment council. We appointed the prime minister, actually works himself. He leads the work, and he's the ombudsman for the foreign investors. I think there's an upcoming foreign investor council meeting, which would be probably very important for Kazakhstan and the region this month. The same thing is also happening in Uzbekistan, because Uzbekistan are opening their policy. They're talking to the world. There's big discussion between Uzbekistan and the US. I think there's a positive changes in general. What we need to do as governments and also as businesses is to create better conditions, to create more access for capital for domestic firms and households. There's one example, which is here in Kazakhstan. We've seen for the first time in our modern history, we actually have seen very successful crowdfunding firm, which has been able to provide investment to raise capital for small and medium enterprises during the pandemic. It's not the checks are not very big, but it's very important to keep the economy afloat and support the domestic producers, because in normal times, when we have open economy, domestic producers suffer from the lack of competitiveness, because it's very hard to compete with China, with other countries, with Russia. But in this world, we can actually support the local producers, so that by the time we come back to normalcy, even given that at some point we want to come back to the normal times, the local producer will be strong enough and competitive enough to do so. And the last thing that I want to talk about, because we don't have much time, it's also about the investment traction policy, because currently we're discussing the strategic investment agreements that basically say, okay, if the investment is deemed strategic, then we have to remove barriers. And there are a lot of barriers on the labor regime, visa regime, the currency regime, etc., etc. So we want to remove these barriers, want to make the life for investors as simple as possible. That's what we are doing with the AIFC as well, with the financial center, whose initial focus was to on the financial sector, financial intermediation, but now we see more and more that we need investment into the country, not only foreign investment, also local investment. So we need to provide the best conditions and the best platform for investors to structure the investment. So we are going to the market, we're helping the investors to come to the country or to come to the projects. We do this matchmaking between the investable projects and investors, and trying to create this platform, to create this ecosystem where we can support economy growth. So this, to some extent, this is about connectivity. It's about more information, more data, more connectivity within closed systems. So I think that has become an important issue today when the economies are more or less closed is, I think it goes also in line with what Senor D'Agostino said about this connectivity. It's not, in this case, it's not about providing this connectivity, but then given that we're disconnected, especially as you said, this is a landlocked country, what can we do for internal producers? What can we do for internal projects so that the economy stays afloat and economy is actually setting something for subsequent sustainable growth? So shortly, that's what we're doing, and I think what the other countries in the region are doing as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Baur, for being short and very concrete and very interesting information for us. So by now we have several minutes left, and we have questions coming via our chat. So I would suppose move into them, and afterwards we will conclude and finish on time. So there are a lot of organizing questions regarding the sending out of presentations and materials, and we already have the answer from these teams organizers that the presentations will be distributed. So dear participants, you will get the presentations and the materials. Next, to have an appreciation of maritime projects that we saw today from the Hamburg Hafen and Logistik and the Hamburg Port Authority, and the invitation to join the bidding procedures on Philippines. So this is up to your consideration. I want to ask you to answer this question. This is just a call for participation. And then we have several questions on the content. So the first one is on the assessment of the link between transportation and the necessity to reduce carbon emissions. How do we compare different means of transportation in this respect today and tomorrow? And what will it mean for this? Is there anybody who would like to answer this question? If not, I may do this, if you allow me. Well, basically, there are several criteria to compare the transportation modes by their environmental impact. This does not only refer to existing CO2 emissions, but this also refers to the new technologies being applied and to shift to this transportation mode. For example, for rail transport, if the railways are electrified, by now that is considered to be the most green transportation. And while assessing the environmental impact, we assess the CO2 emissions from the rail transportation. Then we assess the predicted shift to rail from other transportation modes, and primarily from roads. We assess what be the difference in possible emissions from trucking and possible emissions from railways. Then we also assess the availability of new technologies, because the assessment is done not for today, but for tomorrow as well. And we also use the criteria to understand what changes we are going to meet. In case you want to go deeper in this subject, I will give over to Baur right now. There are plenty of information on this issue, and I guess we will be able to discuss it after the meeting. Mr. Bektemirov, please, you have something to add?
Yes, I just wanted to make one point, which is rather futuristic, and probably it's something that we'll not see in the next few years. But then I remember one example that was brought by, if I'm not wrong, it was by the Baku Port Authority, when they talk about the digital Silk Road and also digital business hub. And then there's one very interesting example, very futuristic, that at some point we'll be able not to transfer the goods. For those goods that we can 3D print, we can just send the model, send information, send data, and to reduce this transportation. So this is something that probably it's not feasible in the next few years, but then in the future, it sounds like a very attractive idea, very interesting idea. So I just wanted to point it out, and I think it's something that we should also thinking in the future.
Great, and that's really very similar to what is going on in the passenger world, when the number one transportation is actually walking on foot and not driving a car or a bicycle or something, and everybody is looking closer to this opportunity. Okay, and another question. This is a comprehensive one, and I'm not sure that we will be able to go into details, but this is a question from Mr. Ernst Schmidt. On the cross-trade lines between China and Europe, what shall be the role of UAE's transit? What would be the saving potential in time, energy, lead time, and assets and other costs? What could be the role of Black Sea region? In which currency the trading partners can make business models? As you can see, this is a really comprehensive question, and maybe I would invite the Port of Hamburg to give the suggestions. Just a few words on how do you see the future role of the Black Sea in the global links? And if somebody else would like to comment, please feel free, but we only have 2 minutes left.
I will, if you don't mind, I will comment on it. And in particular, the role of the Ukraine, I think us being present and also Metrans running some trains, I think Ukraine should and can have a role in particular, because if we look at all the development of the rail planned going forward, everything or most of those are passing through the Belarus and Poland, and then the infrastructure is not just elastic, and there are already now a lot of constraints on the infrastructure. So as far as we understand, and Metrans also, we are looking at alternatives to Brest-Malacevice, which in particular for the southern European countries would be much faster and quicker. Now, the issue there is a political issue, and it is possible to run some trains, but there is always a little bit of an uncertainty. With regards to the Black Sea, it is also something we are looking at, and you mentioned earlier Traseka. The problem there is a little bit Caspian Sea transbordment, and then going through Azerbaijan, Georgia, and then transbordment again on the Black Sea, and then back. And that's cost and time that is lost in the transport, and therefore it will probably be something, but I would rather personally see it more of a niche thing, more perhaps for volumes going from China to Turkey. That could be a route, but to Western Europe, I have my doubts.
Please, Mr. Bektemirov, just if you can do it in 30 seconds or 1 minute.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to note on the financial part of this, because we understand there are different countries on this route. We have this large Belt and Road that we've talked about. So in order to ensure that there's financing, and that when there are multiple parties, when we do trade finance, we just do the just overall contracts. I think it's important to have international standard, international rules. That's why what we're trying to do is International Financial Center, to have this platform we can resolve these issues, and then multiple parties can come together and sign the contract. That's one thing. And second, again, allow me to be a bit futuristic and hopeful for the future. We've talked a lot about this idea of digital Silk Road and currency of baskets, implementing digital currency as well, cryptocurrency based on the basket of the currencies. I think something that in the future can be done as well. So we have to be more open. We have to be more creative in the things that would create less dependence from the rest of the world, and could involve the economies in the region, could involve the parties involved in the actual transit, actual trade. So I think that's something just wanted to point out as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Baur. And just one word to support Mr. Sweens to answer the question, that our modeling showed exactly what he was telling about. And Baur, I think that your words were a wonderful conclusion for our panel today. We all agreed that the issue of connectivity has been changing, that we are moving from connectivity to disconnectivity and new modes of connectivity like digital one. And of course, as usually, and I always do it for all international events, the #1 solution to build up the bridges and to cope with the uncertainty is international cooperation. We see that being from different areas, we have a lot of things in common. We consider the ongoing processes commonly. And I think that cooperation and exchange would be the solution for the uncertainty. Thank you so much, esteemed participants of the panel and of the event in general for today's session. We are almost finishing on time. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. and let us keep on together for this age of uncertainty and new things coming up in the future. Thank you so much, and goodbye.